Welcome to Blizzard and Bloom, the podcast where we navigate the storms and celebrate the triumphs in business and entrepreneurship. Join us as we dive into stories, insights, and strategies from top professionals to help you thrive in today's evolving landscape. And now, here is your host, Jay Rotonnelli.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Blizzard and Bloom. Today we have a special guest with us, similar in sense to what we've had in the past. Last week we had the opportunity to speak with Jeremy Kirkham of Clintar. Jeremy brought some great insight into the snow removal industry on some leadership facts, so I know that was well received. Today we have Brian Horn, editor-in-chief of the Lawn and Landscape magazine. I'm super honored to have Brian here. Gotten to know Brian over the past few years and just what he brings to the industry at large. Without further ado, I'll introduce Brian here. And Brian, thanks for taking the time to come on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
So I know you and I have chatted often about different things affecting the industry on a landscape-wise, the green industry. And I was curious to hear maybe some of what you're hearing lately for 2025, maybe what some of the biggest challenges might be that are happening, and then also maybe what are some opportunities that folks could be looking for in this new year?
Yeah, I think, labor is always an issue. Has been. I mean, you can go back to the 2005 State of the Industry for Lawn and Landscape, and labor is a top challenge. And I think the way, people solve that is just making your company a place that people want to come work. One common theme that I've always noticed and really hasn't changed is companies with a career ladder that can show people who come in on a mower or at an entry-level position that there is ways to grow. Here's what you get paid, and, here is how you get there. And the more that word of mouth travels, the more quality interviews and employees you will get. So that's been a challenge. Trend-wise, obviously, mergers and acquisitions, private equity has just really, it hasn't stopped. It's just consistent. The companies that do announce the moves, it seems we're getting numerous press releases weekly, and it's good. I think finally people have come around to private equity. There are still some people who are skeptical, obviously, but more so when you get a few bad apples, I think it spoils the whole bunch, not to be cliche. But overall, I think people are more open to private equity's investment in the industry.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that. Certainly, I know Piscataqua, relevant to Chenmark, as you and I have chatted about, that brought great opportunities for our company and many other subsidiary companies. And I think, to your point, when we talk about recruiting and then retaining talent, this industry, I feel like, has stepped up a level in the past 10 years in the sense that it's really providing a professional service, and we're really proving ourselves that we are professionals in the service industry. And I think for a while there was a stigma there that, hey, you're in the landscaping business and basically you take grass and make it shorter. And that's certainly not the case, right? There's a ton of talent in this industry. And there's an amazing amount of entrepreneurs and leaders in this industry right now that have really carved some great career paths for folks. And I feel like, based on, what you're saying as well, is like these private equities and acquisitions are happening with either with the P's or without. And it's really providing another level of structure for the employees and the team members.
Yeah, I mean, it's a career, not a job. I think college kids who might be in HOR programs, parents might be hard to win over, but I think the more they can show that, and with the private equity getting involved, it's people from outside the industry who don't have landscaping backgrounds who are holding executive positions, or they're putting people in place that are in executive positions. With the interest of technology in this industry becoming more and more prominent, it's bringing people who are interested in technology into the industry. And again, they might not have a horticulture background, but they're learning it and they are providing a fresh perspective that wasn't there 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's interesting. And again, not to keep reverting back to Chenmark, but we've got a lot of folks that are just super brilliant folks in the company. And to your point, there you have degrees in business or masters in business, and you take a company maybe that the landscape oftentimes is kind of from School of Hard Knocks, quite frankly. And, it's really all about, how do you go in and turn the light switch on every day? And what does it take to run the business each and every day? And I do think, to your point, that some of these companies bringing in that leadership and that next level of business management and business acumen is really helping bounce the companies and the industry as a whole to the next level. So, been pretty neat to see that. We often talk about what's the number one challenge that businesses are facing in the service industries, and it's the labor shortage, right? We talk about that in the United States and North America. What are some of the things that you see some of the businesses trying to do, or maybe what's some of the strategies they're reverting to for recruitment?
For recruitment, I think it's just, I think I don't want to repeat myself, but sort of the word of mouth is important. Going to different, and I guess what kind of role it is always being open to people you meet at a restaurant, a server who might have a pleasant disposition, um, and just always be recruiting. You always have to be keeping an eye out for an employee that you think would fit. Again, you can teach them you could teach them the industry, but finding people with that solid foundation is important. I can't stress the career ladders enough and the professionalism, having uniforms, something as simple as that. A good website, social media presence is also very important to tap into younger people. I don't know. There's maybe a handful of companies that I know that do it well. I'm sure there are more out there, but doing Snapchat dances and little things like that, I think get you on the radar of someone who would not have considered working at a landscaping company, because as you said, there's that stigma that it's not a very glamorous place to work, but these are professional companies with, as you said, entrepreneurs. That's funny you use that word because we just lost one of our longtime columnists. Jim Houston passed away last week, and he was always very, very what's the word? To use the word entrepreneur. Didn't want to use the word landscaper. It was entrepreneur or, professional, industry professional, because a lot of these people that have landscaping companies started them with a mower in the back of a truck and grew it and grew it and grew it and grew it. So he was always adamant to use the word entrepreneur, and I think that's a good way to approach it.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly great loss to the industry. I had an opportunity to meet Jim a few occasions, and he helped me as well. So great loss there. But getting back to what you were saying, as far as, one of our core values at Piscataqua is fun, right? We have integrity and we have family and we have excellence, but the other one is fun. And we have fun what we do, right? Each and every day, you got to have a little bit of fun with what you come in and you do each and every day. And I think, when you start to talk about recruitment and then you talk about retaining, like if your employees don't enjoy it or they're not having fun or they just dislike it, they could be your worst or your best, recruitment service. We do things like that. We started a picture campaign yesterday, video picture campaign. And if I don't want to see the green lawns, we want to see the teammates and what they're doing each and every day and how they're having fun and how they're being safe. And you wouldn't believe that the text messages of almost 300 employees that I've received so far. So I think, building up some of that, I think is helpful as well. So I was just curious.
Is that a contest that someone votes on monthly? I've heard of that, or you guys just do that just to collect the photos?
Yeah, I actually did a contest, and what I did was we're going to do either gift cards or I'm going to personally buy them and their team lunch, and I'm going to deliver it to them out on site wherever they are. They have their choice of lunch. So I'm sure some of them will love the fact that I've got to, stop my day and get out and go get their orders and take their orders for them and get out there and get it to them. And that's part of the fun, right? So
Yeah. Where is lunch usually from?
it could be anywhere: pizza, subs, um,
Okay.
anything of that nature. So yeah, we try to do a little bit of that once a quarter. So it's twofold, right? It's to have some fun with things because we all know the 100 days of spring, right? And what that equates to. It's stressful, it's tiresome, and I think you got to try to mix in a little bit of fun with that. So
And that's it. That has to start from the top. I think that some companies do that sort of thing and it's like going through the motions. But when you have the CEO, the top executives, or if you're a smaller company, the founder of the company who is the one pushing that and genuinely believes in it and genuinely wants to build their culture, that goes so much farther than someone going through the motions.
yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I'm a firm believer in that. It really doesn't cost you anything at the end of the day to take some time out of your day to recognize some of these folks for what they're doing and have a little bit of fun with it. So I'll keep you posted on that, but it's already been a pretty cool thing that's happening. So I'm excited to see it. I came to the technology conference 2 years in a row, I guess it was. I'm always intrigued by the technology that has now entered into the landscape industry and snow industry. And by that, I mean, I think about things back in the day when I first started almost 30 years ago, when we were setting granite steps. There were no magnets that you could hang off of an excavator boom that could, suction cup a 1,000-pound granite step and set it. You were using grade stakes and hoping you weren't catching your fingers and straps. And, we were muscling trees into the holes. And so I think about technology and how far it's come. And not only from a trades perspective and from a physical standpoint, but I think about just some of the software and technology and AI that's out there and what it's doing, for the industry. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the things you're seeing from not only like an operating, maybe software standpoint, but maybe from a tools and operation sense for that matter?
Yeah, it's going to, you mentioned our technology conference that's coming up here in July, the 23rd and 25th in Vegas. And I'm looking forward to this one sort of more so than past, because I do think I think the past couple of years it was a bit stagnant where tech had gone, but the AI thing and Chat GPT and all that stuff, it seems to be being absorbed better by the industry and just by people in general. So I'm curious to see what products pop up, talk to attendees about how they're using that stuff. But I've heard of, lawn care companies that to sort of dumb down what they're doing to the lawn, that process. I know of a couple companies that use ChatGPT to do that, on a fifth grade level, explain this, and this. And that way they can turn that into the customer so that they become educated on what the service was or what the process was. So, and of course, autonomous mowers and battery powered equipment, those are there. I think autonomous is still looking for that push. It's out there. The money is there. It's getting the backing. All the major manufacturers are doing this, and they're not doing it just for fun. They're doing it because they feel there's a need in the market. And with battery powered, I think that has been accepted a lot more than 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. I think that's partially people becoming educated about it. And I think it's the manufacturers are taking leaps and making it more powerful, making the batteries last longer. It's lighter. It's easier on the body of the people doing the work. And there are still people who use gas. And I think there is still a role with gas. But I was talking to an executive from a large landscaping company, and he thinks gas will be out of the industry in 5 years. So bold prediction, but he knows what he's talking about. So I just think that that's becoming more accepted, and maybe there is a place for gas, in the industry for certain jobs, but battery is definitely coming along pretty not quickly, but it's been a slow and steady journey, I would say, in the green industry.
So I look at that and I think of like I kind of break it out into two different compartmental components. And I think about autonomous and then I think about battery, right? And I know when we looked into the battery equipment and we're going to look into it again this season, but probably about 5 years ago, maybe six now, we looked into it and it was really costly to get into it, right? To get set up. So that kind of stirred us. We weren't sure where the industry was headed with it. But now you see it in not only is it safer and healthier and better for the employees, but also there's some of these mandates that are coming down the line in these communities, right? So I think about some of that, and I've got to believe that some of that is driving some decision making as well for some of these companies.
And a lot of states have rebates for stuff, and you can turn your equipment and your gas equipment in, but I don't know how many. I'm pretty sure California has that. And that's going to be another driver when government starts doing that and starts giving incentives for people to turn it in. You're going to see more companies invest. And you had mentioned how you had tried it. And I think there are companies who dabbled their toe in the water 5, 6 years ago and had a really bad experience, and that has turned them off. And now they have to be won back over all over again. And you're actually now the manufacturers are fighting more of an uphill battle because they have to have that bad taste in their mouth, and you're coming back again saying, no, that's better now. It's more cost effective. So it'll be interesting to see. We do a technology report in June every month, and that'll be coming up. And one of the questions we ask is, do you currently use battery powered equipment? I think is how we phrase it. And every year it's gone up. So I'm curious to see what the jump will be this year.
Yeah, interesting. And we talk about social media platforms. I know Justin White from K&D out on the West Coast. He's gone to fully battery equipment, operated equipment, press manufacturing. And I think when you're getting other folks now out there on these platforms, they're talking about it, discussing it, sharing their successes and their challenges with it. I think that really is going to help drive some of the decision making as well. So
Yeah, and there are a couple people I've talked to that they have gas crews and they have battery powered crews, and the crews that go on battery don't want to go back over to gas. And maybe you have people that don't want to go over to battery. I think, when you provide that option, it's something to keep things open minded, I guess.
yeah, for sure. So then when we think about kind of the AI side of things with the autonomous mowers, certainly I know there's a lot of players in the market now, or some that have started and then really invented that market, and then now some that have kind of taken it to the next level. Do you see that being a big component and something that will grow exponentially potentially?
Yeah, I think, more the residential ones are there. There are companies that use those on lawns, the little sort of Roomba ones. The commercial ones, those are still in development, I would say. I mean, they're out there, but I remember when I started 15 years ago at Lawn and Landscape, people were cautiously optimistic that autonomous mowers would be here in 5, 6 years, and 15 years later, they're still being developed. Granted, there's more interest and there's more investment in them. As I said, a lot of these companies they definitely get investment backing. So there is people who see a future, they see a profitable future, but the sort of commercial ones I think are still TBD, but a lot of the residential ones, they are somewhat common. And that's another question in our tech report that I'm curious to see what the jump will be on. Are you currently using autonomous mowers? What that jump is? Is it going to go slightly down? I don't know.
Interesting. And I've got to believe kind of the same with the battery concept, that eventually the pricing will come down to something that's more palatable. Maybe that some of the folks, have kind of strayed away from it because of the cost. So I know Seabreeze Property Service, who we just merged with, they currently have, believe, about 40 units, 40 or 50 autonomous mowers that they're
Okay.
using. And they've had great success with. So I'm interested to learn a little bit more about those.
Are those
Um,
commercial or residential ones?
Residential, yeah. Yeah, so they were part of a pilot program, I believe, with Husqvarna back in the day,
Okay.
and they've been working with them through some R&D, and
And are they leaving them on customer lawns and then the customers and sort of manages it? And if there's a trouble, they
that's correct. Yeah,
call
that's
Series.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yep, that's exactly. So, they're basically they're charging them for a service,
Right.
which is basically having that machine on site, and then then they're subsidizing with the not subsidizing, but they're filtering in with the string trimming and the back, with the blowers and so
Yeah.
forth, garden services. So
Yeah, I don't know of any companies, or maybe I'm drawing a blank, that, take them home, take them back to the shop with them. I think most of them do just sort of lease them or rent them. It's called robots as a service model, and the homeowner, and they sort of come out of the garage on their own and they mow the lawn sometimes every day if you want. And then the company comes and will replace the blades, or if there's an issue, they'll come and fix it. I know one hiccup or one issue with those always are when they get stuck. So if they run into a tree and for some reason they can't, move around, someone's got to come out and move it. And if the homeowner's not home, I was just at an event and there was a panel, and the one panelist was Todd Reinhardt, said that that'll be a game changer when you can get a call to say, "Hey, the robot's stuck," and you can go immediately out and get it. That will be a big jump in interest for those.
yeah, that is interesting. It's going to have its own series of challenges, I'm sure, that hopefully people can bring solutions to it. So I know you said earlier you got the top 100 report will be coming out. Do you see any significant changes with that, or anything that of a teaser that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see bigger and bigger companies. I have the preliminary list here already. I don't have it in front of me, but I think 38, 39 million is going to be the lowest company on the list, and that's been an increase from low 30s in past years. And there's more, $100 million, $200 million companies because of all the consolidation. You have the platform companies like the Sperber's, and Mariani has a platform, and they're buying up, just like Chenmark does, and they're buying up companies and add them to the bottom line, and that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it'll be interesting to see, like, in the next 5 years or so, when do platform companies start merging? When do the big platforms come together and form an even bigger company? Or is that even viable? Can that happen? Will platform companies start splitting off some of their acquisitions because it's not a fit anymore and they're being sold off, or they're, going back out on their own? I don't know if that's something that's possible, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, that's an interesting point. That never even crossed my mind, something like that. But certainly it's possible. And who knows what the future holds. I mean, you've been at it a long time too, and I've seen so many changes within the industry.
Yeah.
And you look at the Sperber's of the world, Mariani's, and they're all doing great jobs. They're top-notch companies, and they're creating some great career paths, for their employees too. So it'll be interesting to see how that takes shape.
And I think private equity has done it so far the right way, where they are letting the people who grew the company stay in place, and they're just giving them resources to grow the company. They're not coming in and trying to dictate what has worked for the past, however many years the company was running without private equity. And you could speak to it with Chenmark. You guys, when did you get acquired by Chenmark? Okay, so it's
Was
been
when
about
we
eight
started.
years.
Yeah. And it's really been a great relationship. It's, and to your point, they kept the operating people in place, and that's what they're doing typically. And I think that's where, we spoke about it earlier. I think that's where the PE's finding the success in it, right? They're coming in from a business managerial side of things and from a financial side, but they don't know the industry per
Right.
se. So, they're keeping the people that have brought it to where it is and why they've invested in these companies, keeping those people in place because I mean, that's kind of the golden ticket. Without some of those folks, you're kind of sliding backwards. So I know I've seen it from our end with our company and Chenmark and the operating companies. Um, it's pretty neat to see even some of the other folks that have been with, like, let's say you take somebody. I don't have an example off the top of my head, but a company has been in business for 20 years or 25 years, and you got long-term employees that have been there and worked their way up the ladder. Those folks know the ins and outs. They know how to come in and turn on the light switch and
Right.
know what the fuel containment system looks like and how we're going to deal with this and how we're going to deal with that. And those are really the ones that are making or breaking you. And it really gives great opportunities for some of those people to advance. I've seen it. I've seen it happen within Piscataqua, and I've seen it happen with some of the other companies, and even in down with Frank's Mariani's companies. So I think that's great stuff. Which in 10 or 15, even 10 years ago for that matter, you didn't really see those great opportunities like that. Well, you didn't hear about them.
Yeah, and that has to be made clear by leadership, that because we used to talk about how you had to keep it quiet when you were going to sell, and like they would come and visit and you had to fake who this person was and they were a friend from out of town. And, that probably might still be the case, but I think there's more acceptance from those employees that if we are going to be sold, it's to better our opportunities for the most part, and not, we're all going to be cut in the next 2 months.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think when you get out in front of it, that's when you can make the big difference, right? Versus keeping it a secret, because nobody likes secrets, right? It's human nature, especially when it affects your livelihood. So, if there was a couple things maybe that you saw coming down the line in 25, I know there's some of great events that Lawn and Landscape has happening. What are maybe a couple key events that you think would be beneficial to some of the folks that are kind of in that mid-level, going from like a supervisor to maybe to into like account management position or something like that, and then working their way up through the career ladder? I know this, like I said, there's some great things happening with Lawn and Landscape events this year. So could you share maybe some of those that folks might find beneficial?
Yeah, we have our Business Builders Summit, May 7th and 8th in Nashville. Who doesn't like going to Nashville? And that event, it's the second year we're doing it. We started last year. We sort of put it together pretty quickly in 4 to 5 months, because we saw a need in the market for it's involves M&A, but it's also focused on landscaping companies that want to grow aggressively. That could be through a private equity investment. We definitely will have private equity companies there that have not invested yet, and companies who want to grow organically. That is still a viable option to grow a company, and it should be embraced. So in that event, like I said, we wanted it to be landscapers who want to grow their businesses pretty aggressively or learn maybe if they want to do that in 2 to 3 years, meet up with some people, form a peer group or a network that you can bounce ideas off of. This industry is very giving when it comes to information and ideas. I've heard of other industries where you go to an industry event and each company sits at their own table and they sort of are angry to be there. That is not the case with any of the landscaping industries or events that I have been to. And that does give, I think you were asking about foremen or general managers. Those positions have to be created. There are companies right now that don't have those sort of second, third, fourth level positions, executive positions. So as companies grow, we have a panel about being held accountable as an owner. As you've grown this company that you started, you're going to have to start delegating and also start answering to other people when you're not leading effectively or you do something wrong. You're going to have a COO or a chief technology officer even sort of give you feedback. So we have that event, and then we have our lawn and landscape technology conference, like I said, and that we started that in February of 2020, or a month before COVID hit. Yeah, so we got that in February 2020 in Orlando, Vegas this year, like I said, and that was just because with the labor issue, companies were now investing more in software to make themselves effective. They were investing in autonomous mowers for positions where they couldn't find people to mow. And we found that there was this passionate group of people that wanted to talk and learn more about specifically technology in the landscaping industry. That's a small bubble, especially back in even 2020. And now, doing it in 2025, it's a little bit more, I should say, it's definitely a lot more interest and there's a lot more people that are open to it. So, and that was the other thing, that a lot of these companies spend money on software and they maybe use 20 to 30% of it. Software companies do have their own events that they can learn, but we wanted people to sort of bounce ideas off of no matter who you use, that there might be a process or something you did at your company that a company in Omaha did that can learn from a company in California and vice versa. So that's sort of what we view our events as. And I think every industry event is that you're just trying to create relationships with people you may not have met otherwise.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I kind of leave on this note is I was at that event. That was the first event you had there in 2020. Yep. And I think we got off the plane that later after the event. And that's pretty much when the world shut down. But it was interesting, even from a couple things I think about here is interesting back in 2020, only 5 years ago, when you look around the room and you talk about the networking, which is great. It's always like an old home day, right? Or you get to see some folks and bounce some things off because this industry is very good about sharing ideas and inputs. And there was a lot of oohs and ahs about the technology that was coming down the line. But boy, fast forward to 2025, and I'm super excited to be at the show to just see in 5 years the advancements that have been made because they're happening quicker and quicker.
The exhibit floor has grown exponentially or a lot since 2020. There's so many companies you don't even think about that you could do. Like back in 2020, I remember there was a company that you could text customers that you were coming. And I think that was back then a relatively new technology, whereas now that's common. Things like that just pop up that you don't even think about. And you go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know that was there. And that's sort of what you get when you walk the show floor.
Yeah. Well, super excited to have some of these events coming up. And I know what lawn and landscape brings to the industry is incredible. And what you folks in your team are doing, people look very excited about it each and every month when the magazine comes out. And then, just from the online platform. So we appreciate all that each and every one of you are doing out there. Looking forward to these events and the networking opportunities and just hearing what others are doing and what's working for them and what isn't. That's part of a great thing that I think Lawn and Landscape does for the folks, so industry at large. So thanks, Brian. I really appreciate you being on the show today. Looking forward to having some folks listen in on it. I'm looking forward to catching up with you at the technology conference. So thanks again for your time today. If people want to reach out to you that had some questions, what's the best way to get a hold of you, Brian?
My email is b as in Brian, HORN @GIE.net. And you can always go to lawnandlandscape.com to read our stories and find contact info there as well.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Brian. Really appreciate the opportunity here to chat with you and have you on the show.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you having me.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Blizzard and Bloom with Jay Rotonnelli. We hope you feel inspired and empowered. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Join us next week for more insights and stories to help you bloom in your business journey.